Merge Tactics is currently at its lowest point since its time of release. More than half of the top players from last season have quit due to no ranked badges. People are finding it too big of a grind to get all the way back to Diamond from being reset to 0 trophies, and the overall game with the Elixir Loom just feels way too unbalanced. So today, I'm going to explain all of the problems Merge Tactics has, what the dev team has done well so far, and the solutions that I believe can fix these problems. First things first, I want to explain the core motive behind developing a game like Merge Tactics, and that is making money. I haven't heard this talked about specifically enough for Merge Tactics. Of course, monetization is a huge discussion within the normal Clash Royale community. However, for Merge Tactics, I haven't seen monetization being too powerful. Again, the first thing I noticed when I started Merge Tactics is that it's actually not pay to win, surprisingly. The levels don't have too big of an impact on the game. I believe it's maybe 1 to 2% per level, which is actually surprising given the fact that levels make a huge difference in regular Clash Royale. Now, with that in mind, the only monetization that Merge Tactics has is either those shops that you have on the Merge Tactics screen that sell those individual packages of cards, or you have the skin offer. So the skin bundles, those are the only two methods that Supercell has of making money. And the biggest problem, the absolute biggest problem I saw that I haven't heard talked enough about is I just don't think Merge Tactics is making enough money, because those bundles of individual cards, like for examples, in the homepage you can buy like 6 witches or something like that. I just don't think that a lot of people are buying those, because why would you buy those when there's so many better offers to get? So I just don't see that avenue making that much money. And the second is, of course, skin bundles. And my initial thought is $20 for a skin bundle is absolutely ridiculous. The only people I see buying those are, number one, content creators like myself who want to show off the skins to viewers, or two, very active and devoted players. So think the top players that are maybe playing for multiple hours a day. It would make sense for those people to buy those skins because they would be looking at those skins for hours a day. Other than that, there's no real reason for somebody to really commit and spend $20 on a skin, right, in Clash Royale and Merge Tactics. And because those two are the only ways of them making money, and I don't think they've made a lot of money from that, I am very scared of, I guess, the lifespan of the game. And we know that Supercell is not afraid to just instantly kill off games. Recently, they've just completely shut down the production of Squad Busters updates, right? Squad Busters being one of their main games, I guess you could say. Not one of their main games, but a game they devoted a lot of time to developing. Of course, they also killed off Clash Mini, a very similar game to Merge Tactics. So my biggest fear is that, okay, if this keeps up, if they're not able to actually make enough money and have enough good methods of producing revenue, then I worry that they're going to kill the game. That's a looming fear that I've had since the beginning of the game, because I recognize, oh, immediately, how are they making money from Merge Tactics? And it's not that Supercell is money hungry or greedy. I actually think they're actually very not greedy with the production of Merge Tactics, which I commend heavily. But you have to understand, it costs a lot of money to have Merge Tactics. Of course, the development team, of course, just having the servers for that as well. So that is my biggest fear. Well, if they can't produce enough money, then how about the long term of this game? Where is that going to go? Of course, just getting that out of the way and now moving on towards the more core problems of the game. First things first, I want to address is the current state of the game. Of course, is the elephant of the room, right? The current game, if you queue up into a high to medium elo lobby, you're going to see oftentimes 4 out of 4 Elixir Looms. And obviously, we've had this problem in the entire history of Merge Tactics. We had, in the beginning, the Elixir, or the Spirit Empress, 4 to 4, pretty much in every single lobby. But even in the last season, they did a pretty good job of introducing the Goblin Queen and sort of balancing out those two rulers. Like, yeah, the Empress was better, but the Goblin Queen was viable in the last season. And now, I would argue, well, up until yesterday, when I actually tried the Spirit Empress for the first time and discovered that, yeah, she's actually viable, the Loom was just completely dominant. There was no other ruler you could use except for the Elixir Loom. No other ruler. Now, of course, with the knowledge I have in mind, I believe you can still use the Spirit Empress, and she's pretty good. But the only way you can actually make the Empress work is if you're a freak of nature with the Spirit Empress. If you've been maining the Empress, you've played the Empress for tens of hours, that is the only way you could use him. Other than that, the ruler that the majority of players have to use is the Elixir Loom. And, of course, I've talked... actually, I was at Atlanta Worlds last weekend, and I was talking to some of the people there, and I said, hey, your goal is obviously to make all four rulers balanced, right? And they're like, yeah, of course, because that's obviously the goal, but it's very difficult to do that when you have all of these different rulers, right? You have the Spirit Empress, King, Goblin Queen, Elixir Loon that have very different abilities. It is extremely hard. I would argue even impossible to just completely balance them out, and make them equally as powerful. You're going to have a ruler or certain rulers that are just stronger than the other. I feel like that's inevitable. So the question I have to ask them is, okay, at this point, are you going to continue trying the impossible task or the very near difficult task, the near impossible task of trying to balance out all four rulers equally? Or are you just going to accept the fact that you can't balance all four rulers equally and just try to maybe lean into one, maybe eliminate rulers entirely? Because in my opinion, this might be a hot take, but I just don't really think the concept of rulers should exist. I feel like the default should just be the Spirit Empress, or at least if you're going to have the existence of rulers, I think the default should be you gain 2 elixir per merge from the Spirit Empress, because the Spirit Empress is one of the hardest abilities to balance. I feel like she's either going to be very good or very bad. Same thing with the Loon. The Loon's ability inherently is going to be so difficult to balance. I feel like, yeah, you could either continue doing these little tweaks and trying to just iteratively try to like get set on the perfect balance, but I feel like that's just so hard. At that point, you should try to maybe embrace it and lean into, oh, maybe you have to eliminate the rulers, or maybe if they want to keep in rulers, I think the two biggest solutions they should do is, yeah, either one, maybe just make the default plus 2 elixir and maybe just make some very different abilities for the remaining rulers. Or I think they should increase the elixir count. So at the beginning of the game, I think big bucks should be default. All rulers should get 9 or 10 elixir. And at that point, RNG wouldn't be too big of a problem. So the problem is these rulers are too reliant on RNG. And I guess you could say that about the rest of the game, but it's going to be extremely hard to just balance these rulers. Which of course leads me to my next point about the game being too RNG dependent. Of course, that's been an argument or a discussion for the entire lifespan of merge tactics. This is too RNG based. We want a more skill based, game mode, sort of like more like team fight tactics. Of course, there's inevitably going to be RNG in a game that's based on a shop, in merge tactics, which is inherently based on RNG. But I think they could definitely do a better job balancing that RNG. And of course, this is more, I guess, obvious in the current meta with the Elixir Loon. The Elixir Loon's playstyle is you just try to go for goblins, farm early, and you just kind of keep your comp, right? And pivot late game if you have to. You just keep those merges. There's not much sort of outplay potential, I guess you could say. Merge Tactics obviously is a relatively simpler game. However, there is obviously skill that differentiates players, right? And of course, that RNG being too strong is sort of what makes the game just way more luck-based, right? And people don't want to have a game that's entirely luck-based, right? That's the problem right now with the Elixir Loon, just a way more RNG-dependent ruler than the Spirit Empress, for example. Obviously, the Spirit Empress is RNG-based as well, but if you have the skill and you get merges later on, you could still outplay worse players in the majority of scenarios. And Supercell is actually trying to design merge tactics to be a casual game mode, which makes sense, but at that point, you have to ask yourself whether RNG is the answer to making a casual game mode. Me personally, I don't think it is. I believe that if any player is playing a game mode, it just doesn't feel good to get bad luck, and that being the reason you lost. The worst feeling in a game is just to lose and feel helpless because of that. And in a lot of cases, you see this in normal Clash Royale as well. The existence of matchup, of course, is luck dependent, and if you just get a terrible matchup, there's no worse feeling in the world. Let's say, I don't know, you're playing Graveyard and you're facing Goblin Curse Mother, which that is the worst feeling. You play well, and the reason you lose is some dumb reason. Oh, your opponent just simply got a bit more luck on his side, which is the worst feeling you want to lose. If you want to lose, me personally, and I think a lot of people can agree with this, they would simply just want to lose for a good reason. Maybe they just didn't play well. They can have something to improve on. But if you're constantly losing games for something that's out of your control, I believe that is extremely discouraging to all players. And I don't even think that Supercell needs to choose, oh, do we want to cater towards a casual player base or a competitive? I believe they can have both. But Merge Tactics right now is in this awkward spot where they're trying to push more and more for the game mode to be casual, which is why they actually made the Loon meta, because he's way easier to use. He's more RNG based. You don't have to practice as much and, I don't know, get good at the Spirit Empress, for example, to have a fighting chance at the game. which is sort of what they're going for. This is exactly what they intended, which is what I asked one of the people last week at DreamHack Atlanta. I said, oh, was it intentional for you to make the Loong more meta than Spirit Empress? And it was a bit dodgy, the answer, but the overall idea was yes, because the Spirit Empress was obviously broken, and the Loong is just a much easier hero to use. But this is sort of what I mean. A lot of people are not wanting to play because the Loong is literally just gambling at that point. It's RNG, and people want to feel good about their achievements, that they've done it because of skill, not because, oh, they just got luckier than the other opponents. So again, I don't think that RNG is the answer. I don't think if you want more casual, that equals more RNG. I don't think so at all. And again, my point about making a game both for casual and competitive, I definitely think that's achievable. Like, Merge Tactics honestly was in a great spot in the last season or two, because again, Merge Tactics is so simple compared to normal Clash. Even if you're a quote-unquote casual player, you can still hop on, play a few games. It's very simple to learn. Oh, you just try to get more troops, match the traits. That's pretty much it. But also, if you want to play more competitively, you could do that as well in the past, because you'd have more skill-based rulers like the Empress that you could use and consistently climb if you had the skill. So if you wanted to play competitively, you could do that with the Empress because she was skill-based. Whereas if you wanted to play casual, oh, you just have to play less. You could still have fun, enjoy the game. I believe you could definitely cater towards both of those audiences. But now they've essentially completely killed off the competitive, I guess, aspect of it, people trying to play competitive. To be fair, it wasn't in the best spot earlier because, again, my previous arguments about the game being too RNG based. However, now it is in the most RNG dependent place that has ever been in it, and if it keeps going down this route, I think it's honestly going to kill the game. Moving on from that though, revisiting my point about the balancing of the game, I actually think the dev team did a pretty phenomenal job of balancing the cards in the game. Of course, towards the beginning, right, in Season 1, you'd have Clan, Avengers, Rangers, Ace, that was too broken. What did they do in the next patch? They nerfed Clan, they nerfed the Queen, they nerfed the Rangers, they nerfed Ace. Of course, in the next season, right, to make Ace only apply to that inner trait. Phenomenal job. This season, what did they do? The two weakest cards, Skeleton Dragons, Bandit, they buffed those cards. Executioner, a very powerful card, they nerfed it. Obviously, a few balances you could argue against. I know a lot of people did not like that Goblin trait change, making it so it's possible to get the Dark Goblin. There are a few things that are a bit questionable, but at the end of the day, it's very hard to have perfect balances. Yeah, they did have a few mess ups in the past, but overall, I don't have any huge complaints about the balancing of the cards. I think they should just keep it up pretty much. A lot of people have also been complaining about the trophy reset being too harsh. To your casual player who only plays, I would imagine, maybe a few hours a week, for the most part, can they get to diamond from 0 to 3,000 easily? Absolutely not. For me, a decent player, it takes me 10 hours to get the diamond from 0 trophies. For your more average player that's not maybe going to have a as high of a win rate, it's probably going to take them maybe 15 to 20 hours over the entire season. The duration of the season, I think it's fine. 30 days. Like, it's a perfect time. It's very simple. It aligns with the normal Clash season. However, the reset is way too harsh, and they definitely need to address that. I think if you're just starting the game, yeah, you need to get from the 0 to 3,000 to the diamond for the first time, 100%. But I think that they should maybe set it back, maybe a league back. Perhaps, like, maybe for diamond, oh, you get reset to gold 1. For gold 1, maybe reset to silver, or something like that. I think that would be way more forgiving, especially for the casual audience, that if people are not playing as much, oh, they can still get to, like, a decently high rank and climb. Obviously, at that point, you have to think about rank inflation. So, you know, the Supercell team, maybe they'd have to think about that more deeply, but I'm just saying the overall idea is, yeah, you shouldn't be reset all the way to 0, especially because in the beginning, it's going to be very boring. You're facing a lot. If you've peaked diamond, you're facing bots and players a lot lower than you. So I think the rank reset should definitely be way more forgiving. Now I'm going to discuss possibly the most controversial point of the brand new season, and that is the absence of ranked badges. This is probably what a lot of you are here for. This is a big reason why a lot of the most invested, dedicated top players of last season have actually started quitting. Now, this all started out last season when Royale API in one of their news blogs said that ranked badges are coming in the next season to Merge Tactics. Now, Royale API, of course, very reputable source. So when they mentioned that, pretty much all of the players caught on. They started letting each other know. So everyone, especially the top players, were like, oh, let me push. I believe this probably applies to pretty much all of you guys. You said, oh, rank badges are coming. I want a cool badge with a rank on it for Merge Tactics, so I'm going to push. Now, what happened when the new season came around and nobody got badges? Everyone was disappointed. They had these high expectations. When they were not met, they said, oh, screw this. I didn't get the rank badge. I thought I would. I invested hours of my time, so much stress. just learning the game, practicing, playing. Oh, what? For nothing, for no ranked badge. I was promised a ranked badge. Now that's the problem. Do I believe that's Supercell's fault? Absolutely not. It was Royale API that said that people would be getting ranked badges. Supercell never promised anything. They never mentioned anything regarding badges with a rank on it. Now, of course, I still want to address ranked badges. Ranked badges are 100% something that I believe should be implemented, at least in the future. By adding a badge, it's going to take relatively less work, but it's going to bring in so many more of the return of the player base that quit back to the game. Not only that, but it's going to motivate so many new players to come. I believe that simply adding a badge is going to bring in more people than pushing the game to be more casual or something like that, because everyone in Clash Royale wants a cool badge. Badges are probably the most sought after accessory cosmetic in Clash Royale, and a lot of people, of course, they push right for the 2v2 ranked badge. The regular ranked badge, Royal Tournament badges are one of the most sought after, high demand cosmetics in the game, and merge tactics adding badges would give so many casual players who are not skilled enough to get a ranked badge, Royal Tournament badge, CRL 21 badge, whatever, those very high skill badges, a chance to actually get a relatively easier badge to achieve for themselves. So by just adding a badge, they could attract a whole new audience to their game, motivate them to actually play and invest the time to get good at it so that they could get this really cool cosmetic badge. And usually the audience that wants these like relatively lower effort badges are casual, that can't actually get the, the very high, the difficult like ranked badges. So I think that would definitely increase the interest in the game as well. Overall, though, I'm very worried about not only the current state of the game, but the future as well. There are a lot of things that I just don't know could be done long term. Another point I actually didn't mention earlier is how are they going to balance the Spirit Empress long term? If they keep adding cards to the game, the pool is going to keep expanding if they just keep building onto the pool, meaning that every update, the Empress is going to get weaker and weaker until she's literally an unplayable hero. The rulers as well, as they continue adding more rulers, the task of balancing every ruler equally is only going to get more and more difficult. These are questions the dev team has to ask itself when it comes to the long-term trajectory of where the game is going. Can they continue updating the game as it's currently going, continually adding cards, rulers, which will make their work a lot harder in the long term to balance? Or will they rework the game, maybe leaning into that, eliminating the rulers, maybe making the 2 elixir per merge default, things like that? And with how the card pool works, are they going to keep adding cards, or are they going to rework it so that maybe there's a cap, like let's say 20 cards, and now they're just going to replace previous existing cards in the pool with the new cards they add and maybe rotate it like a set every season? Overall, I love merge tactics. I want it to succeed. I want it to make money, but I'm very worried about the current state of the game with the current balancing and the long-term state of the game, whether they'll be able to sustain everything that they've been doing or whether the balancing will just be too difficult. But I hope the Supercell dev team does hopefully they watch this video. I don't know, I doubt it though, but hopefully they address some of these problems. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below.